Hey, what's up guys? I'm Eric Perkins.
And I'm Jamie Perkins.
Welcome to the Perkins Brothers channel.
Today we're going to be cutting metal in preparation to be making these 2-inch square metal handrail posts made of 1/8 inch thick metal, 1/4 inch plates on the bottom. We have a lot of metal to cut, so let's get started. We've got some new tools that we're going to try out for cutting. Tell them about it.
Evolution Tools was kind enough to send us 2 of their models, a chop saw and a circular saw, and we're going to try that versus what we usually use, a bandsaw. We got no issues with the bandsaw. It is a little slow, but we thought, hey, they're going to send us this stuff. We'll give you our honest opinion about how it works versus the bandsaw.
I've never seen this much metal before. It nearly flattened Jamie's truck yesterday when we went to go pick it up.
To check the temperature after the cuts, we're going to use an infrared camera. Do we have an infrared camera?
No. I was just going to have you touch it.
I'll get Ray to do that part.
Yeah.
Where's Ray?
Ray, I'm going to need you to touch something.
If you're wondering what's the difference between this wood cutting skill saw and a metal cutting skill saw, there are a few differences. So this saw runs at about 5,800 RPM, and this one runs only at 3,700 RPM, which is slower. Additionally, this saw has a vacuum port, which will keep some of the metal shavings from going into your eyeballs and into a vacuum. Otherwise, all the features are the same as a standard skill saw. Let me point out to you the differences between a wood cutting blade and a metal cutting blade. This wood cutting blade has 24 teeth on a 7 1/4 inch saw, a slightly angled rake, which makes the tooth in essence kind of sharper into the cut, and this metal cutting blade has a 0 or perhaps even a little bit of a negative rake with more teeth and a more blunt style of blade, which has got to hold up to the pressure and the heat of cutting through steel instead of soft wood.
Okay, this is what we usually use, our Jet Model 712 metal cutting bandsaw. So we're gonna chop through a piece of this steel and time it to see how long it takes. Here we go. Good. All right, so that got the job done pretty nice. Took 34 seconds, and there is quite a few burrs on the steel. You can't see it, I'll zoom in for you. And so 34 seconds, nice square cut. That's what the bandsaw can do.
Now you've seen how the bandsaw cuts, let's check out this Carbide Tip Skill Saw next for the same test through a 2x2 piece of material, and then we'll talk about the bandsaw a little bit more later. Well, that was fast. The skill saw only took 7 seconds to cut through this same piece of steel. I want to point out something to you, the saw marks. So the bandsaw cuts parallel to the stock as it enters, and it's very slow cutting through this wide part. As it gets to the narrow part, it cuts very fast, and then it slows down when it gets to the bottom and it has to cut this long cut. On the other hand, you can see the skill saw cuts diagonally the whole time through the metal. And I think that makes it have a faster cut. All right, so there's the skill saw for you. Let's pull out this chop saw, get it set up to cut, and give it a run. Well, first of all, this thing looks way cooler than I expected. It's a pretty good looking fit and finish here. And this is a 15-inch blade. A standard abrasive cutoff saw has a 14-inch blade. As you know, an abrasive blade will get smaller in diameter as you use the blade. It changes the RPM of the blade in essence because the rim speed moves in towards the center and it gets slower. Additionally, the point where the blade contacts the material changes and it moves farther back. I believe having this carbide tip blade that doesn't change size, that doesn't change RPM, or the relationship of where the blade contacts the material is going to be a huge benefit. I'm already so convinced that this is going to be the fastest, most efficient way for us to cut this metal that I'm building a nice little jig for this saw to sit in, and these raised up blocks so the material is held flat across the base. I've been waiting for this moment. Let's test out the chop saw. I've got my bench set up. I got a piece of stock. Let's try it. All right, so I'll say this. That cut so fast, I can't believe it. I think the time was 3 seconds. Here's the little piece. It cut super clean. I will say there are pieces of metal flying off of this blade. If you're standing near one of these, you have to wear eyeglasses and you need to wear hearing protection. So be aware of that. Literally, it was 10 times faster than the bandsaw. A little bit noisy, but way faster. You know, part of the safety gear that I wear as a woodworker and a metal worker is a clean shaved face. Because what if a hot piece of metal flies off and sticks in his beard and poof, the whole thing goes up in smoke.
Lights out.
You can't have that. Whoa.
Hey, look at these vultures out here.
All right, let's talk about some of the features of the vise and the fence. Typically, I'm not really in love with this style of fence, but let's look at some of the features that I think are going to make it more usable. First of all, we have a nice quick release for this Acme threaded vise. I think that that's going to be very useful in making quick adjustments. Unlike my abrasive cutoff saw, this has a tool-free lever for loosening the fence. It also has a positive stop, a pin right here for 0 degrees and for 45 degrees, as well as a pretty nice looking angle gauge for any degree in between that you might like to set it to. I just want to show you the fence on this abrasive cutoff saw. This has a wrench and a nut to adjust the fence for an angle, which you can't even read the angle guide anymore. So I think this is going to be a lot less hassle to cut angles on the Evolution saw.
Of course, we couldn't do a metal cutting video without showing you the old abrasive disc saw that we have. This is our Makita saw. You can take these off so I'm not yelling. We're going to cut through the steel with this thing and show you how it works as well. All right, so there's a couple things I want to point out to you. Number one is that worked fine. It looked awesome. There was sparks everywhere, but the steel got really hot, and you can see that down here. I'm not going to touch it, but it actually turned the steel blue from getting it so hot. And that's a negative thing about these abrasive discs, is that you get the metal so hot that it can actually lose its temper, and you can't touch it for quite a while after you've been cutting on it.
I bought this jet bandsaw because of a couple reasons. One, it's got a large capacity. It's got a heavy-duty motor. It's very quiet while it's cutting, and you can even walk away while this is making a cut and come back and do something else in the meantime. One great feature about the bandsaw here is that you can stand it up and use it in the vertical orientation, making it easy to make freestyle cuts or rips or little cuts on the ends of pieces. And it has this handy table, although I will say I had to chop this table down in size, modify the angle of it to make it to where you could leave it on when it was in the horizontal use. Otherwise, the factory table was too big and you had to remove it every time that you want to use it in this orientation.
All right, we've cut a bunch of metal with a bunch of different tools. We've tested out these Evolution tools. Here's our honest opinion. Wow, why didn't we have these before? They cut really fast through metal. The metal is cold, no brainer.
Yeah, this truly is my first time using this type of a metal cutting saw, and I am very impressed. It cuts like butter. I mean, it's like you're cutting a soft piece of wood with this thing. Truly amazing.
The question in my mind is, how many cuts are we going to get out of one of these carbide tip blades without them getting dull? I don't know the answer to that, but I will let you know in a future video when we find out, because we're getting ready to cut through like 100 pieces of steel here today. Thanks for watching our video today. I hope you enjoyed it, and remember to subscribe so you can get our future videos. See ya. Okay, if you watched till now, you get a treat for watching the whole video. Jamie's got a special drip system here to keep his bit cool while he's drilling these holes. Let me show you how it works. It's what I call ghetto made, homemade. So we start with a 5-gallon bucket of water. We've got a threaded nozzle coming through the bottom of that bucket to an old airline on down to the drill press where a pencil is jammed into the airline, but just loose enough to where water leaks out around it to the bottom of the eraser where it drips off at a pretty even rate, keeping the bit cool and making you look like a hero.
Oh, yes.